Drawing with cheap colored pencils might not result in a cheap looking portrait. You can draw realistically with cheap colored pencils. At the end of this video, you'll be able to know what techniques to use in order to draw realistic portraits with cheap colored pencils. This is a colored pencil set I bought from Turkey and it is worth $9. Their quality is same as Crayola's. So today I want to show you can actually draw realistically with, it is called Fatih Jumbo colored pencils, and it's a set of 24, and the paper I'm using is Fabriano Bristol smooth paper. The first thing I do with the new sets that I buy, usually to put them down on a piece of paper and try to see what color scheme I'm working with. The very first thing I realized was their pigment was not very strong and they didn't have color names on them. So it was very difficult for me to refer to them during my colored pencil course because I used these pencils in my course. As you can see, there are 3 shades of light blue, and I just didn't know how to explain which one I'm using specifically. Because in more expensive sets, you usually have the names like raw umber, burnt sienna, sky blue, whatsoever. But in this one, we didn't have that. That was a big drawback for me. This is going to be my main skin tone. And you can see that it is very, very light. It lacks pigments. It doesn't look very vibrant. I have a similar color in my Karandash Limonun set. As you know, Karandash Limonun is very expensive. One pencil is like $10, but you can see that with even one layer, I get so much pigment. You can see that 1 or 2 layer will be enough with Karandash, whereas with this cheaper one, Fatih colored pencils, I will have to do maybe 5 or 6 layers to get the same kind of shade. And when I compare it with other famous brands, what I see, Fatih Jumbo is at the very bottom, as you can see. Their vibrancy is not bad at all. They are very, very similar in terms of color scheme. But when you look closely, the picture changes. Well, Fatih has a lot of white of paper showing. It's at the bottom, and on the top you see Karandash Luminance, and you can see that it covered all the paper very nicely. This tells me that I will have to work extra to cover all the white of paper. When I started my portrait, everything was going well until I needed my sepia color, which I didn't have in my set. So what I did was to color in dark brown first and then go over them with black, which was very scary for me because I usually don't use black in my portraits. And I also realized with cheaper pencils, it is always good to have one layer down and then blend them with a blending stump, and then put second one down and then again blend with a blending stump. So this helped me a lot in terms of having a smoother skin result. It's too many layers here to get the same result that I would get with maybe 2 or 3 layers with Karandash Luminance. But the X-Acto knife gave the exact same result that I would get with a more expensive pencil. In terms of layering, it wasn't very difficult to put maybe 6 or 7 layers on top of each other. Because my paper was good quality, I think it was holding these cheap pencils very well. But my biggest challenge was no matter how many layers I'm putting down, it was not getting dark enough. So I think this would be my biggest challenge with cheaper pencils. Lack of pigment, lack of vibrancy, and it wasn't as full as I was hoping for. Another challenge I want to talk to you about is the choice of the colors, because I lacked shades of pink. I only had this blush pink color, and I had to use this pink everywhere, in the face, in the ears, on the lips. It was not the exact pink shade I was looking for because I needed more peach than pink, but well, I tried to do my best because when I added this light brown with this blush pink, it gave me kind of a peachy color, so it wasn't terrible at all. But when I wanted to have dark red, I applied the only red I had here and also added some dark gray or sometimes black to make it look darker. I only had one silver gray and one dark gray in my set, but when I apply the dark gray lightly, it appears to be light gray, right? So it wasn't a big problem for me while I was working on the teeth. But for the lips, I only had this blush pink and very bright red, so it looked like a lipstick a little bit. But honestly, I think it could have been worse. I liked the result in overall after especially I add the mustache and beard. So it wasn't a big problem at all. The black in the set was very good. If you have a good black, if you have a good white in your set, then you're very lucky. But the white of this set sucked. However, the black was perfect. And when I applied all these white gel pen on the hair and in the beard section, it worked the same as the expensive sets. It layered well with this black color. And I forgot to tell you, these Fatih colored pencils are oil based. So they are acting more like Faber-Castell Polychromos rather than Caran d'Ache Luminous or Prismacolor Premier. So they are giving more finer point results, more detailistic results for me. And when it comes to shadows, I only use dark brown because I wanted to blend them, and when you blend black, it looks like dirty. Another technique I tried with these cheap pencils was blending them with a solvent. I had baby oil here because in my course I'm trying to teach how you can draw with cheap products, and here you can see that it worked perfectly. If I was using Polychromos or Prismacolor Premier, it will give the exact same result. But why using solvent here, if you ask? It's because I'm working on a much larger area and I'm working with color black. I tried to blend them first with a blending stump and it wasn't successful. Then I tried with my fingers and it was not successful again. So I decided in the end solvent will be the best action here. You can see me trying here with blending stump, and in comparison to the left side of the bow tie, you can see that it did not work at all. And I tried with my fingers because it's an oil-based color pencil, and well, it did not work either. So again, when I use the baby oil or solvent, you can see that all the white of the paper is covered successfully. You can see that in the reference photo, there's actually a Parliament blue. It's more like an ultramarine blue, but I couldn't add that blue because I didn't have that in my set. I had dark blue, but it did not give me the exact same result that it looks in the reference, so I decided to go with black. So the choice of the color selection is important in your set, whether it's expensive or cheap, it doesn't matter. Please make sure that you have the colors that you want to use in your portrait. But also you can always get creative too. Hey, look at this, we did it. We drew with $9 pencils realistically. I want to add one more thing though. Let's talk about hair. If you are dealing with difficult hair such as this one, don't forget, you need to do as many layers as possible, as many layers as your paper can take. And once you finish a very first layer and you have good pigment down, then you have to blend them. But what happens with cheaper pencils, when you blend them with a blending stump like this, you're not going to get a good result. They're not blending in each other, they're not covering any white of the paper. So what can you do? And I don't recommend to use any baby oil here because it makes it difficult to layer afterwards, but I highly recommend a blender pencil. A blender pencil is made of 50% oil, 50% wax. It basically interacts with your oil-based or wax-based pencil, and the pigments gets loose and they blend in each other very nicely. Because of that, the white of the paper is covered. And the plus side is, once you do this in your very first layer, it is still possible to go ahead and make extra layers on the top, just the way I am doing right here. I added all the browns, all the blacks in the darkest parts, and at the end, you see that it is not different at all from other pencils. You cannot tell the difference if I did this hair with a Prismacolor pencils or these cheap Crayolas or Fatih pencils, because at the end of the day, it's all about the technique. What are the disadvantages? It takes longer, and it takes much more effort, and it takes much more strength, and you might finish your pencils very soon because you're making so many layers. If you want to improve your colored pencils drawings, you need to know what the most common mistakes are. This is why I guarantee you this video will help you a lot.